Okay, I guess we can get started. It's 7 o'clock. So we'll call the meeting to order for the Planning Commission on Wednesday, November 8th, 2023. And we'll start out with the roll call.
Steve Haken, Lake Enchantment.
Dennis Ferraro, Eagles Nest Road.
Bethany Cody, Lake Enchantment.
Jim Johnson, White Oak Drive.
Linda Winslow, Norwood Street.
Eric Power, Staff Planner.
Jason McCarthy, Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Approval of the agenda.
Make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes from the previous meeting, October 25th, 2023.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Did you say support?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment. Anyone wishing to speak right now on agenda items or non-agenda items can come up now and speak. Or wait till the public hearings. Seeing none, we'll move into 6A, new business, site plan review, number 110823-1. Proposed 1,656 square foot professional office trade stop land use to be located on a property located within general business zoning district. Property address is 250 Northwoods Road, parcel tax ID is 5201801900800. Applicant is Cross General Contracting, East 8693 M28 in Munising. Jason or Eric?
Thank you. So we have representatives from Cross, including their civil engineer, Brian Savline, with us tonight. We appreciate them submitting this application. This is a property that's been on the market for some time. It's a bit challenging, and you'll understand why in a little bit. But essentially, this is adjacent to the Barrel and Beam, just to the east. So with reference to where it's located in the township, it's off of Northwoods Road. The property is zoned general business, and it is about 1.84 acres in size. There's the zoning for it. So the proposed use of professional office or slash trade shop, that's a permitted use by right in the general business district, so no issues there. We'll go through a little bit of the plan that was submitted, but essentially you're looking at metal prefab kind of siding, which is not the corrugated metal type that we discourage, nor does it trigger really any of our design standard measures because of the fact that a singular wall is not long enough to trigger that. But nonetheless, this is a very kind of high-speed looking building, if you can imagine what the siding of that would look like. And their office layout there. And then they have room for a shop on the, what would be the north end, I believe. So this is the site here, and I'll just get into, it's kind of a dramatic site in that you have topography in this area. Obviously, this is Northwoods Road here. And then you see how close and tight those contour lines are. So it's a bit of a challenge to get up to the site to start with, and probably one of the reasons that it's been on the market for as long as it has. It's not that it's in a bad location. So this was the original proposal here, and we're going to show you an alternative to that in a minute that was submitted earlier in the week that we're going to ask you guys to consider. So you can see here how the driveway undulates up and gets up to the top of the rock bluff. So this kind of overlooks Best Buy, or what is now the new Adventure Store, which I understand just opened today to the public. And the parking, landscaping, everything's tidy and up to township standards with regard to vacant land on the north and some developed land. Actually, the water tower, this is our Northwoods Tower, our water tower is right here. And our building actually is right here. To the east of that would be the apartment complex there. So again, you can see topography overlaid on that. And a little bit more of a zoomed in area showing the parking, adequate parking. So what's being proposed, and as a result of the challenge to get below a grade that the fire apparatus can get up to with their fire trucks, okay? Or the fire department can get the fire apparatus up to, is a boundary adjustment or a purchase from Barrel and Beam to the east. This would allow them to create a grade that is just below the maximum of what the fire department would allow. So they've been negotiating with the fire department, okay? So this letter that was provided to you today on your dais indicates that through coordinating with the fire department, if this was to move forward and be allowed to happen, they believe that they can get a grade. And not only that, but they would also try to get that down to a lower grade based on the topography. But there is some rock there, so there may be some blasting going on. So there's that. So with that, and considering the site and the challenges, I've kind of revised what the staff recommendation is, and I'll go through those really quickly here. So based on the new proposed driveway location and regrading, staff recommends approval of the site plan contingent upon submission and approval of the following items: an updated stormwater plan calculations and Marquette Township stormwater agreement. I'll let Brian touch on the stormwater, but basically there were a series of catch basins that were in the plan that may be subject to change based on the fact that the driveway may move. Township sanitary sewer and water connection permits, so they're looking to tie in a 1-inch water and a 4-inch sewer. 4-inch sanitary. A township signage application, although I imagine signage would be somewhat minimal and located along Northwoods Road. Compliance with our dark sky lighting plan. They did submit some a lighting schematic, but we would like to make sure that those meet our dark sky requirements to protect that night sky in the area. Compliance with all other Marquette County building permits. Of course, a financial guarantee, which we require of all developments of 1% of the estimated project cost. That is to cover and ensure that landscaping is provided as proposed, and that we get a copy of as-built plans for utilities so we know depths, diameters, and where they're located. An approved township parcel division or boundary adjustment application, which would be required if they acquire property from Barrel and Beam. And then finally, an approved permit for the Marquette County Road Commission for the proposed driveway location. I believe that if the Planning Commission sees this as an opportunity to develop this site and add some value to it, that although it is challenging, I believe that that it can be accomplished with these things being accommodated for, and then working with the developer to make sure that they submit in the items that we're requesting of them. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Also, the development team is here, and specifically Brian Savalainen, who's the civil engineer, to talk about stormwater or any of the site conditions that you may find interesting.
One question for you, Jason. Does Barrel and Beam have splits available?
That's a good question. It would actually be a boundary adjustment and not a split.
Okay, I'm not sure about the verbiage. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, Steve, that's a good question, and something that obviously raised my hackles too.
Okay.
But essentially, they would be purchasing property, the boundary would adjust,
Okay.
and they would incorporate that into the cross general contracting parcel.
Okay,
That would be a requirement of mine anyway.
all right, I understood.
So it's interesting. I don't know if anybody had a chance to drive by it. There is a real estate sign out there, and it's been up there for a while. I live on Northwoods Road, so I've seen it for years. And Cross has been, based out of Munising for a number of years, and they would like to have a satellite office here in the community. Obviously, they've been doing work over here on a number of projects that not only Marquette Township has, but I'm sure the city has as well. And, we're kind of the epicenter for a lot of activity in the area.
I have a question. What's the nature of the product or business?
You state your name and address, please. Thank you.
Travis Cross of Perch Lake Road in Munising.
Right.
Mr. Ferraro, we're really just looking to have a space in Marquette Township, specifically in the Marquette community, where we can base some small operations out of. A lot of our people actually commute from from Marquette to Munising.
Mhm.
We're looking to have a facility in which some of these people can actually work right here locally and closer to their home from just a geographic perspective. So we do intend to have a small office, as Jason illustrated with one of our first drawings.
Mhm.
And then, of course, we do need some storage to go along with that office space to store, miscellaneous materials, a few tools, things of that nature, just to facilitate the business.
I'm sorry, excuse my ignorance, I just don't know, what is your nature of your business, is what I
So
would.
we're a general contractor.
General contractor,
Yes,
okay.
Yep,
Okay.
so build buildings and those types in the area. We're essentially identify ourselves as light commercial.
Mhm.
So we do just those types of projects in
Okay.
the area.
And then I had another question. So this is a high elevation, and there was mention of catch basins for stormwater management. Are these going to be detention ponds or retention ponds, or what? Maybe the engineer could speak to this.
Please, Mr. Ferraro, I am not the expert in that area, which is what we brought on.
Before you step down, could I just ask you, what's the finish on the exterior of your building? Are those precast panels, or is it a shotcrete kind of thing, or what are you going to go with there?
Our intention is essentially to duplicate the office that we currently have in Munising. So
Okay.
if you happen to know that building, Mr. Heikkinen.
I'm afraid I don't.
Okay, so they're essentially pre-painted panels.
Okay.
With aluminum dividers in between.
Okay.
And
Is
then-
there depth? I mean, are we talking any dimensional, between the dividers and the panel
So
front
the
face?
visual dimension that you see is really with the dividers. So when the panels butt together,
Mhm.
they are separated by an aluminum extrusion,
Mhm.
and that does give some feeling of
Some
depth,
relief?
But it's minimal. It's a half inch or less.
Okay, okay.
Brian Savaline, 3224 US 41 West. I'm a civil engineer on the project. Okay, perfect. You're at the original site plan here. Do you mind if I step? I think I can talk loud enough. You guys.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I can see you.
The original plan, which still means to be the plan for stormwater, it's not a catch basin system. There may be few, there's actually, right now I have it planned at 3 retention / detention basins. This side of the building has enough room in the corner right here for us to do a fairly deep basin. This side of the building would go to somewhat of a shallower basin. What I was in the process of doing is getting this connection, an overflow that would come down the road to a third and final overflow that will not only handle some of this, but also then the drive, because we're separated by the high point on the site itself. So I want to talk a little bit about the drive, and I think I notified Travis right away that this is going to be a real challenge, and immediately told him that one thing he should look at doing is with this property right here, to look at maybe trying to acquire that for 2 different reasons. One, oh, that was right there. What you see here, this tree line is actually an existing gravel drive, and it's pretty insane. It's like it's 14% at the steepest grade right now, but it was just a gravel drive to access that area. So I looked at many concepts with this to try and keep this in here and maybe look at an easement where we can connect to it. But there's 2 major problems that I ran into grade-wise. One, North Road actually is, grade-wise, is dropping this way. And this, the top point as well, which you don't see on, that part of the existing road is 10 feet higher than this side of the bluff. So trying to chase a drive up there, I was battling about 14 extra feet of distance, where by going this way, I was able to gain about 4 feet and lose about 10 feet. Our original drive on the plan that was initially proposed was, it was just under 10%. And I knew the fire department would have some issues with that. So once we submitted that, we immediately then, you know, after getting the initial response, sat down with them and tried to work out some grades. So, and we were able to accomplish that by moving the driveway to the higher point and coming to the lower point. There is a profile that, I don't know if it was attached to this, but we have a high point here, and we have another high point right about here, where our hope is that we can do mechanical rock removal if we need to, which is basically just taking a hole and pounding it until we can pull it out. And it happens actually they had to do it on a daycare, I think, for some of the parking lot stuff. But the other thing about putting a drive here is, this is a pretty tight corner down here by the water tank. So us putting a drive here, and then what you see in the grant, which we will do, this will be a stormwater retention area, gives us more room for that, but it also, we're gonna need to clear this area for sight distance back into that corner. So moving that drive onto that property optimizes the visual and the sight distance coming out of there. And it also allows us to get a, believe it or not, a 2% landing, which the county requires when we do that. So that's why we ended up doing that. I believe there's a purchase order. This has already been put together. Mike Molesky is the surveyor on this one. I believe it's in the Barrel and Beam's hands right now. There's a tentative verbal agreement, and they're going through final. So to ask your other question too, we saw this as they're, upon approval, they're purchasing this, and then it would be a boundary adjustment is the way we saw it, and what Mike thought it was. But those will be worked through, you know, legal terms. So whatever we have to do with that, you know, that'll be done to your standard. And he's also working with the county, because there's some questions on the previous transactions that have been done here too. And I know Mike is right now working through those. It sounds like there's further north, which doesn't affect Barrel and Beam. There's actually a gap between this property and the property to the west. So they're trying to resolve that matter too before they can finalize the survey and where the actual boundary would be. We're kind of hoping that the gap comes through when we get to split it, but we'll see. Right now, this is based on what the legal is described at for this particular property.
What's the total square footage, including parking? Approximate.
Of the building or the lot itself?
Well, I mean, so whatever you're going to build and then pave.
Oh, we're probably, I could tell you we're about a third of the overall site in terms of what we're doing in new hard surface.
Okay.
You know, it's well within the parameters.
Yeah, we only have 5% in the general business district is supposed to be, or, how do I say that, 5% minimum.
So the topo makes it difficult, but it also makes it almost impossible for us to utilize the whole site, just because of the challenges of getting from one spot to the other.
And you're
The
confident?
site up there is beautiful once you get over the rock.
And you're confident that the retention basins, detention basins that you're planning are going to be able to contain the water?
Oh, yeah, I had the original plan based on your ordinance, where we designed for the 100 and can release the 10. which is required in your ordinance. I do need to go through some regrade, because we also, the fire department, we originally had a one-way traffic, and you can see it still says that there, but we've adjusted it now to a two-way.
On this drawing,
Yeah, on this drawing.
right?
But what that does, you know, my grading started a little closer in here, so I gotta tweak that, so I either gotta go steeper, we might have to do a little bit of retaining block. Worst case scenario, I'd probably do a connector between these with some underground storage as well to meet it, but I've done several of the sites recently in the area and fully understand your requirements, so it'll be designed to meet that.
Okay.
I don't wanna get in trouble here, so.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a fair question, sir? You talked about fracturing rock with a hoe? I mean, are you talking
No,
about
it's a break, it would be a breaker.
a breaker?
if we
Are
needed
you
to.
talking about igneous rock? Are you talking about ledge there?
Well, it looks like it could be ledge in two areas, but we're not positive yet until we, what we're gonna do and what we talked to the fire department about is the way the profile works. Like through the humps, our maximum cut is about 5 feet right now, so we may have to, once we get that exposed, we'll see what's there and what we can do. If we got a break, you know, I think we made a condition on our plans that, you know, we need to get a permit and mat that and
You anticipate blasting in there?
everything else. I would hope we don't have to.
Yeah.
Some of it down lower looks like it could be more of a little bit of a shale type thing that we can
Little bit of
bang
sediment.
on it and separate a little bit.
So help me, is there public water and sewer to this site?
Yes.
Okay, and you have no problem getting it through that rock?
No, we've got, the way that water and sewer, as you can see, I show it coming along the east side.
Yeah, I don't have that drawing, sorry.
Yeah. It's,
Oh, okay.
It's on all the drawings.
Okay, yeah, my eyes are.
But if you look, the grade actually drops off from the topo, it drops off pretty severe in this direction, so our roadway over the center line, we're trying to be close to it, but on the right side closest, we actually have a fill over there, so what we do if we need, as we're coming through this area, this corridor, there's a low swale in here that'll help for our stormwater, but we could also use a lot of the material here to fill that until we get. Here's there's a hydrant right here on the site, the water main is on our site.
Okay.
The Public Works is still trying to come up with the drawings that they have. They couldn't find any as-built on here. So when we go through the permitting, Lenny recommended we just get together and work that out. There is a possibility, there is definitely a sanitary manhole down here that I thought for the residential apartment complex. So worst case scenario, we would have to bore, we would probably go with a grinder pump system up here, even though it's gravity down, just to be able to get us down to that without having to tear up any road work, so. But they believe there's a sanitary line here somewhere, they just can't find it, so. So, and that's why it's conditioned, you know, we have to work those details out and do that, but yeah, it's tricky.
Will that be a paved road up there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. The intention, Mike, now that they have this or will have that, we may keep the gravel access just for their, you know, they don't have a problem using that, but the big issue with the fire department was, they have been running issues with 8% grades, but it's more when the grades are where it's more than an 8% separation. Where we have it now, we have a 2% down, 7.5 up, so we only have a 5.5% in small vertical curve on the bottom. And the same thing up here, we go from a 7.5 into a 2, that's going up. It's the same thing, it's like a 5.5% grade separation, so they're not running it. They told us some story about losing their bumpers and stuff, and so,
Yeah, not the easiest site.
No, no. No, it's gonna be a difficult site no matter what goes up there. And I think with this solution, the other thing is then you don't have two drives on two separate properties either. So I don't know if that made any sense to
Thank
a
you.
lot of people, but
I guess I'm assuming you're just gonna be doing the construction yourself on everything?
That is the intent, yes.
Okay. Will there be any storage of, any, demo and material up there, or, anything like that,
So, Mr. Johnson, the intention is not, we're a construction company, so some of those things will be coming and going. We realize and understand the neighborhood that we're trying to develop into. We certainly want to maintain that look. So even if you look at our facility in Munising, we have, what people see means everything to us. So that isn't our intent here as well, is that anything that does arrive on our facility on those properties that is not favorable in terms of a visual perspective will be there short term.
So you have equipment, vehicles that you use for your business.
Yes.
Do you plan on maintaining those vehicles in that building?
We do not really do any vehicle maintenance. If it is, it would be things like changing tires,
Okay.
simple stuff. It is
Okay, so
not-
you see no reason for any water separators, oil water
No,
separators
no,
drained?
That's beyond what we even
Okay.
attempt to do as an organization.
All right.
There's professionals out there that we try to do that for
Understood.
us in their facilities.
Yep.
And, Jason, since it's such a high elevation above everything else around there, you don't have to worry about any of the lighting affecting any of the, neighbors?
I'm more worried about lighting because it is elevated, so, the dark sky lighting is important in this scenario. They're aware of that.
So whether or not you get the property from Barrel and Beam, it's still gonna go forward, but it'll just be harder if you don't get that property, as far as meeting the grades and,
Great question, Mr. Johnson, but probably the intent is not. We feel, at least our understanding is currently, that we need to acquire that adjacent property to get the fire department's buy-in on his plan. I don't know that it really makes it dead in the water, but let's just say that agreement falls through with the Barrel and Beam. I feel like in some ways, we're back to the drawing board with Mr. Sepple and his help to work with the fire department and Jason's team to figure out, is there another solution that we can use to make this a buildable site for us? So, no, the intention is to procure from Barrel and Beam. Every intention is right now, and every indication is that that will happen. Nick Van Court is reviewing essentially a purchase agreement currently. It's in his possession. It looks as though that is going to come to fruition, so that is still our prime path.
Travis, are you doing the office building first, like first phase, and then the shop behind it, like second phase?
So I think as it's illustrated, it is that we have, if I remember dimensions correctly, it's roughly a 40 by 104 storage portion that's gonna go on the back side of that shop. Probably in this first phase, we're only gonna do a small portion of that 40 by 100. So I don't remember the dimensions offhand, but let's call it a 36 by 40-ish office portion of the building. And then we'll do only 40 by, I'm gonna call it 40 on that order of the storage portion to give us a space to work out of to get started. And then maybe at some point in the future, we'll add that additional 60 feet of storage onto the end as illustrated in the drawing.
So that space that you're not gonna be building, that half of that 104, and then you have pavement going around it, how is that gonna be left?
Great question. So Savvy might be able to help me out with that a little bit, and we would want to meet any requirements here. My intention would be ignorantly, without having feedback from the board or Brian, is undeveloped area that we would build in the future, but still maybe have to do for fire access around the building. So that's something I'll need a little guidance on from Brian.
Yeah, I would think right now, based on some of our, we would pave up to where we can, where we're finished on each side, and then instead of going all the way to the end of site with our runaround to a temporary gravel two-way, you know, that still meets the turning templates of the fire department. You know, and that'll be part of our phasing plan. I wasn't sure exactly how much of that building he was gonna build, so
Right.
that's what I would recommend in doing, you know, with probably a time frame on when we would have to pave that temporary if the building didn't come all the way. You
Yeah,
know, if there
we're
is-
requesting approval of the whole site plan, and I know that they are too, just so that, you know, in the future, they don't have to come back to put the addition on per se, other than acquiring a zoning compliance application.
So if you guys wanna put a condition on that or something, you know, that's, you know, we've got quite a few things there to deal with that we plan to, but that would be our thought, that we would make it gravel until the remainder was done. Maybe if it's not done in 2 years, then it has to be paved or something along those lines to meet your requirements.
Well, I'm sure between Brian and Jason that this will all be worked out into everything.
Usually is. But yeah, these projects have phases and process, and you as planning commissioners are realizing that now more than ever, so.
Well, it seems to me that this is a wise use of that property that has
It's the
sat
only use right now.
has sat vacant for many years, and it certainly is a visible site if you travel up and down that highway. So I'm sure it will look very nice.
They'll have great views.
Yeah, right. We're all coming up there to look.
Is there fencing up there right now, speaking of that, about how high it is, or is there gonna be?
There isn't any fencing on that site, but the previous, what was it, I forget, on the highway there, has put fence, cause they did the blasting off the rock, you know, and they have fencing up there for those ends. There's no real super steep grades off the backside of that on their property, you know, so there was no plan to do any fencing there, and I don't think we have slopes that are any steeper than even 1 on 3, you know, so.
Or to obstruct the view.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone can see up there unless you're on the highway. Maybe the apartment, but even the apartment, when you look at the topo, the building's probably 50 feet off the break line of where the grade starts dropping for some of their parking. There's 20 foot of differential between their closest parking lot and the top of the ridge. So.
Well, looking for a motion here, if anyone wants to make it. Looks like everything is in order.
Motion to approve site plan as stated in item 6A of the agenda.
With the revised recommendations, with the revised.
Subject to all the conditions. Correct. Thank you.
I'll support that.
Okay. Motion and support, any more discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Carried unanimously.
Thank
Good luck.
you.
Congratulations.
Everything goes.
Good luck on that one.
And we get tours when you're done and get to see the finished product?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll put a lookout up there then.
Yeah, yeah.
$5 a look.
We're not,
I'm not zoned for that.
We'll come back for that.
You probably have a line of people wanting to see the lake. It's probably
Well,
beautiful.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of people poking their nose up there once they get rolling.
Maybe you can ask Barrow and Bean to put a wet bar in there for you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to 6B, special use permit public hearing, 110823-1. Proposed short-term rental land use to be located on property located within the rural residential zoning district. Property address is 409 County Road 550 in Marquette. Parcel tax ID is 5208004055. Applicant is Kevin Thompson, 340 West Berg Avenue in Marquette. Jason or Eric?
Thank you. So Mr. Thompson submitted an application for the short-term rental. The property is zoned rural residential. And as we just discussed, each property in our community is unique and has its own challenges. So this is a lot of record, a very old lot that was somehow carved out way before my time. But it is a small parcel. Kevin did get the survey that I requested done on the parcel to see where everything was at. And you can see here that I believe it's, you know, in the realm of not even a third of an acre, I believe. It's pretty small. But it has served very long time as a single-family home. And he was able to acquire it at some point and desires to conduct a short-term rental out of it. Of course, in the rural residential zoning district, that is a special use land use that requires a public hearing, notification of neighbors within 300 feet. And we have provided you with a proposed finding of fact. Essentially, rural residential to the north, south, east, and west. Neighbors have been notified, the fee has been paid, and there is additional information. So in the packet, I included, because I had to look this up myself again, that there's a staff note saying that essentially rural residential requires 1 acre minimum lot size. This is less than that, but it is a lot of record. And so the ordinance speaks to nonconformities, and specifically nonconforming lots of record in Article 23, and in this particular case, Section 2308, where it indicates that a nonconforming lot of record is any validly recorded lot, which at the time it was recorded, fully complied with all the applicable laws and ordinances, but which does not fully comply with the lot requirements of this ordinance concerning minimum area and minimum lot dimensions. A non-conforming lot of record may be used for any of the principal uses permitted in the zoning district in which it is located, provided that for any use which is to be served by an individual potable water well and sanitary septic system, the non-conforming lot shall be of a size and design to meet the minimum requirements of the Marquette County Health Department. And then it goes on to talk about Section 20.09, which discusses area and width requirements for lots of record. That particular section, area and width and sewer connection requirements for lots of record, indicates that a lot or parcel of record created and evidenced by deed or regular documentation of record in the office of the Marquette County Register of Deeds prior to the effective date of this ordinance may be used for any of the allowable uses in the district in which it is located, even though the lot and or the dimensions are less than those required in the district in which the lot is located, provided that the minimum setback and side yard dimensions and other requirements of the district not involving lot area or width are met. So, what does all that mean? Essentially, the front yard setback's blown out. There's a portion of the front porch, I believe, that's touching the right-of-way. I will say that 550 and the road commission widened and acquired additional right-of-way not that long ago as part of the Eagle mine upgrade for electric, and I can demonstrate that by showing you the power lines that are here. You can see them on the aerial view, but there was additional right-of-way gathered at some point not too long ago, which did encroach on, obviously, the front yard of that property, as well as a few others in the area. So the front of the deck touches the southwesterly right-of-way of County Road 550. With that being said, staff does recommend approval of it, but it's my recommendation that Mr. Thompson would it's only contingent upon obviously hearing comment from the public, but that, that if it moves forward, that a variance from the ZBA be provided for the setback requirement that's in section 20.09. Mr. Thompson's provided you with a narrative. You know from previous experience with these that I included the conditions and safeguards, general use standards, and the review requirements for any special use permit. I believe without any additional comments, if there's any questions of either myself or the applicant, I'd be happy to answer them or try to.
Yeah, I got a question for you, Jason. So, under the Article 17 for special use permits, okay? And it must be under section 1706E. It says the proposed use, as in the proposed location, shall fully comply with the requirements in the ordinance and be consistent with the purpose of Article 15, principal uses permitted in Article 18, and I believe it should be Article 19, of the performance requirements. And the performance requirements require that it be at least an acre in size. That's what he said, it's got to meet these requirements. And the building has to be 1,000 square feet. Neither of those requirements are met, so how can that special use even be granted for this? If they don't meet the requirements that are set forth in the performance standards that have to be met for a special use to be granted.
Yeah, I looked at,
I mean, that's black and white to me.
yeah, that's an interpretation that you're welcome to have.
Okay.
As a planning commissioner.
Do you have a counter argument against that?
No, I looked at the uses that are permitted in the district, either by special use or permitted by right. And this use is permitted in that district by special use.
Right,
And-
only if it meets the requirements.
Sure.
Okay.
And then I looked at the non-conforming section, because clearly it's a non-conforming parcel.
Right.
And so was my interpretation of the ordinance, in a way to get the applicant in a direction that he wanted to go, provided a review by the planning commission and with the public hearing.
Does the lot also have to meet health department requirements for replacement septic field? How old is this parcel? Has there ever been a replacement septic field ever put in?
I would ask the applicant for that information. I asked the applicant to provide that information, but I had not received it yet.
Okay.
Come on. Kevin Thompson, 340 East Arch Street.
Yes, sir.
I reached out to the health department, Sonia Reapy, and they didn't have any historical.
Didn't have, so is there, has one been replaced already, do you know?
I don't know.
Have you had it looked at? Is it?
Yeah, I had it serviced. I sent a receipt over to Jason. I had it serviced
You had it
in.
pumped?
Yeah, I want to say from Soderberg from July of 22. So I've been keeping up on it. So.
Okay.
But I don't have, no, I'm sorry, and I did reach out to Sonia at the health department and didn't find any, they had no historical.
They had no
on it.
record of it at all, huh?
Sir, is someone living there now?
What's that? No, not currently.
Okay.
And it's not a third of an acre, it's less than
It's tiny.
2/10 of an acre, it's
Right,
1,800.
yeah, it's
It's
small.
dinky.
What type of heater do you have in the house?
We've got, just natural gas. Yeah.
It said space heater on our paperwork.
Oh, it does?
Mm-hmm. Is there a fireplace in there?
No.
So you have natural gas, like
I had a new,
like a propane tank?
yeah,
Or-
we had a new heater put in, let's see, I put one in this year, so. E&G put one in.
So current, before today,
Mhm.
it's been a long-term rental?
What's that? No, I've had short-term rentals in there,
You've had short-term rentals in there. Okay.
which is why we're here today, so let me get it on the record.
I guess, Steve, also with reference to your comment about our, item E,
Mhm.
it says is consistent with the intent and purpose.
Right, but it's not a permitted use, so now we're looking at a special use. And it, and again, it says it must meet the requirements of the performance standards.
Yeah, it's a valid point.
Okay.
I think that, I've had this conversation with Kevin, he knows that it's a challenging proposal, but, I said, if this is what you want to do, here's the way it has to go, and there was no guarantee. The other option is for him to either sell the home or rent it out long-term, I guess, which are not
Which is a permitted,
detrimental,
which is a permitted use.
which is a permitted use. But it doesn't change the character of the home, the
No,
setbacks,
and I understand that. I mean, it's written in here for a reason, that's all.
the use remains the same. It's residential use.
It's a special use.
Yes.
And this is well water?
What's that? Yeah.
I had a conversation today with somebody that was talking about some monitoring wells in the area, that general area around 550, regarding the fly ash dumping that had occurred historically. Do you know anything about that? Does that impact your area?
I haven't heard anything. Now, that would be more on the other side of the road, I think, so I don't know.
On the side of the 550?
Yeah, they'd be on the other side, so,
Okay.
yeah, I haven't heard anything though about that.
Have you ever had the well water tested there?
I have not, no.
Okay.
I usually, so minerally, we usually just keep a water pitcher with a filter in it too, so.
How much of a variance would you need for that setback? How many feet?
35. 35.
35, and how much does he have right now?
-1.
Because they moved the road.
Well, it wouldn't be non-conforming either way. 35 feet front yard setbacks, a pretty good distance. It's what's required in all of our rural residential districts. So if you were to go drive through Bishop Woods, most of those homes are set back 35 feet. That's a good distance.
This house was built long ago, when,
46, I think,
45?
45 or 46, I want to say.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The road could have been moved by then.
Yeah,
Yeah, no one.
The road was also built in the 40s initially. It was probably a 2-track.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Get on the train to go to Big
yeah,
Bay.
right.
So, Jason, a question, if this, this is a non-conforming use, we agree on that?
It's a non-conforming lot.
A non-conforming lot,
Yes, sir.
okay, and, when this house was built on that lot,
It was before the advent of zoning.
before the advent of zoning, okay, so in that case, is the structure also shepherded in
Correct.
under the
Grandfathered.
it's grandfathered in under the non-conforming exception?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, with respect to Steve's question, what's your position? Is your position that, that provision for non-conforming lots and non-conforming structures cures this issue for this particular lot? Is that your opinion, and this particular use?
I don't think it cures anything. The use is residential to residential. It just has a kind of a commercial connotation to it because it's a special use and it's not a permitted use. If it's not granted because of maybe a challenge to Section E there, then Mr. Thompson has the option to rent long-term or to sell the home.
Was there any public comment from neighbors or anybody?
We haven't opened up the public hearing yet. So I don't-
We got no correspondence?
No.
That's what, yeah, that's what I meant. Okay.
I guess what I'm struggling to understand is what, if it's a acceptable in its current state as a non-conforming lot and a non-conforming structure, so that there's no enforcement action to be taken against this particular property or this structure by the zoning.
Or county.
Or county, then why wouldn't what difference does it make that it's being switched from a purely residential use to a quasi-commercial use? What difference does that make in terms of whether or not the structure and the lot are acceptable as non-conforming?
Well, technically it's a change of use. I mean, even though it's residential both ways, could
okay.
be considered an intensification of the use, I guess, but it's a special use.
Okay.
I don't know how else to slice it, but the ordinance does speak to nonconformities. I don't know what else you would really do with the property.
So you're saying when a use changes, then the acceptability of the lot and the structure as a non-conforming entity, we're on new grounds then?
If
Is that what you're saying?
if you expand the nonconformity, any nonconformity, so if, let's say right now it did meet the setback requirements, but he wanted to put an addition towards the front and towards the right of way. That would not be acceptable without getting approval from the ZBA.
Right.
And so to try to allow Mr. Thompson to do what he wants to do, but to comply with the ordinance, in my view, if the planning commission considers approving this, I would like a condition that he has to get a variance from the ZBA to accommodate that particular section of the ordinance which addresses nonconformities.
Right. I guess I'm still having a hard time understanding why the difference in changing it from residential to quasi-residential and commercial makes a difference in acceptability. I just don't get it.
I always try to be somewhat of a coach to our residents, and so if Mr. Thompson wants to convey the property at some point, that there's no impediments to conveying the property. He's went through the proper channels for zoning to receive the approvals that he needed to conduct what he wants to conduct.
So Denny, I'm with you. I don't really see a huge difference here. We already have a property that's either people are living in full-time, people are living in as a rental part-time, or however, or they're short-term renting it, but all along here, it's the same kind of thing. The property's being used as
I think you have to look at it this way. There are a lot of different special use permits that could be asked for. And not all of them are as innocuous as a short-term versus a long-term rental. So that's what we're considering now. We're considering a special use permit for this property. So if we allow for a special use permit on this property, when I feel it doesn't meet the requirements for allowing a special use on a non-conforming lot, then any special use, why not? Even though it's a non-conforming lot, and it could be a lot worse use of the lot. So, you know, you know what I'm saying? We're considering one special use that is that he can request. There are a number of them that he could request. So that, you know, that has a lot to do with the size of the lot, you know, how the septic system, you know, there's all kinds of things to consider. So the fact that he's asking for something that we consider innocuous, like, you know, who cares if it's short-term or long-term, it could be a different type of special purpose that would have more of an impact on the property and more of an impact on the neighbors. So I think
That's theoretical.
it is theoretical, but we have to consider that. We have to consider what our ordinance calls for when we consider a special use.
Okay.
Regardless of how innocuous or how odious it is, we have to consider what the ordinance says. Should we allow for a special use on a non-conforming lot when our ordinance, I think, says we can't?
Okay.
That's what we're discussing.
And so
I'm not saying that I'm gonna vote against it, but I'm just saying that our ordinance certainly says that it's questionable.
Don't all those special use permits that you're talking about, don't they all have to come to the planning commission?
Absolutely,
So the decision we make on one could be different than the decision we
absolutely.
make on
But
another.
we still have to consider them the same.
Okay, and in my mind, it's already been there. Now, if he wanted to build something on that third of an acre as a short-term rental, we would say no. No, but,
it would never get to you.
well, you would say no. Someone would say no.
sure.
Okay, what? I don't get to say no?
Not unless it's a site plan review of
Yeah, and-
5,000 square feet or more, and I don't think we can fit
Yeah.
that on.
And there's a lot of residents, I guess I'll call them, in the township of Marquette that don't fit things correctly. You know, I know that. And people, I guess I have to applaud someone for coming forward to ask for something, because I just feel that there are a lot of people not coming forward and they're just doing it. So I do applaud that part, and it's unfortunate that we kept changing 550. Right, Aaron? We kept changing that road for safety.
How long have you owned it, Kevin?
God, 3.5
Not very long.
3.5 years?
3.5 years.
And was it a owner occupied house before that?
No, it was a college rental. Yeah. It was a deal. I knew the guy. I coached his kid in hockey. He walked across the street one day, saw me at the store, said, "Kev, you want to buy this?" And kind of shook on it in the parking lot.
It's been a rental for quite a while then.
Quite a while. Yeah. We put, you know, it was pretty rough looking when we got it. So we put some energy into it to make it look nice, obviously. We maintain it. We've got, you know, we've got our cleaning crew. We've got someone out there probably, I don't know, every couple days just straightening up, and I'm out there all the time. So, yeah. So it's a nicer place now than it was when we bought it.
Sir, if the planning commission would approve this, would you agree that as a condition to approval, that you get BZA approval for the setback issue? And also, would you agree to have the well tested?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
'Cause that could be you would agree to that condition?
Yeah.
'Cause,
What Jason was saying too, is he likes to kind of coach, and, you know,
Okay.
so yeah, definitely.
You know, feel like the sewer system is, or septic tank is a issue at all? That's in good shape
As
and,
far as I know, like I said, they serviced it. I called out the other day, I kind of like, as the meeting was coming up, I'm like, I gotta call and just see when the last time I had it serviced, and it was a year ago last summer, so. When I asked her, I said, we've got a couple other properties, so what should be, what's the standard? And she said every 2 years you should have it serviced, and we've been doing it about every 18 months, so.
How many people can stay at this particular?
We cap it at, I think we cap it at 4. So there's a 1 bedroom, and then there's a living room with a pull-out couch. Good size, like L-shaped kind of pull-out couch.
Do you know how many college kids live there at any given time?
I remember walking in there one time, there was probably 7 or 8 of them crammed in there. It was, yeah.
You have adequate parking and everything.
Yeah.
So who would handle any complaints from the neighbors?
I mean, I'm number 1, they all have my number. I've had one complaint, that Chris called me, he said, I think there's a party or something going on, but that was a late night. I called the state police right away, notified the people, state police are on their way, and by the time I got there, it was pretty quieted down, but we're kind of all neighbors there, so we keep in touch. And but we've had really good, I was just looking right before I came in, over 244 ratings, and one out of 5 we're averaging, I think we're at like 4.75, so I think we do a pretty darn good job with our team.
You have other short-term
I do.
rentals, how many?
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, I've got 5 right now. So, between City Marquette, Green, I call it the Greenhouse, 409 is my one in the township. And then we've got one out in Chocolate Township too. So, it started as like kind of our original house. I won't get into a long story, but we started with our house that we started our family, and we moved, got our permit for Marquette. So it was just kind of a little side business, and it's kind of turned into learned a lot in the last 4 years, but it's turned into a really cool little business for us, so.
Why don't we open up the public hearing to see if there's anything more to hear about this, and then we can talk further. Is that okay, Jace? You all done with what you have?
Absolutely, it's your call.
Okay. All right, then let's open up the public hearing at 8:02. Anyone wishing to speak and come forward and state your name and address, please.
It's Chris Wieringa, 389 County Road 550. If you flip back, just for context, to the lot lines there, the other one there, wait, there we go. I'm that lot one removed to the south, as that map brings. Few questions. One would be, I could just ask you guys in person, but do you know where is the drain field on that property?
What your
Okay,
question,
good.
sir?
You have to.
Yeah, we couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry. I'd like to know where the drain field is on that property.
It's your turn to talk, we're not gonna respond.
Oh.
You can ask your questions then
Or,
after you're
yeah,
done.
I would like some clarification on where the drain field is. BZA approval, I believe that you said. Clarification on what that is. Jason, you said residential to residential has a commercial connotation. That is confusing to me, but I would like a little clarification on what you meant by that. My comment in general, and I will say that I think Kevin does a nice job with that as a short-term rental. I think he and I were both surprised when it was not, it did not go through the special use portion of this commission. I guess I will say, and I mean, it's gonna be the same thing with item C, which is we are a rural residential area zoned. And I see that property, if it were otherwise up and available, is potentially something that somebody could live in long-term. And we have a housing crisis in Marquette. I look at my neighborhood and I see that when I moved in 10 years ago, what has, it has changed from single-family homes, and there's a lot more short-term rentals. Blessing and curse. I wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't tell anybody what to do with their property. I think there's a fine line there, and I do waffle on this. But I think when business interest and household interest gets confused, I am concerned about the integrity of my neighborhood, and I want that. Like, I want to live there. I want to die at my house and in my property. I'm concerned about what's going to happen, not just in my neighborhood, but in Marquette Township. I know that we do not have limits. I know that in terms of the special use, like, I don't think, like, other than the non-conforming, I don't think there's any reason why you can't vote for this and approve it. And I don't think that this is maybe the issue at hand for me, but it's my opportunity to just say that I think as a township that we need to start looking at ways to retain people, retain college students, retain our population, and give them places to live, because they are moving to Negaunee and Ishpeming or out of state, and that concerns me. Where I used to have families that I could look at down the street, like these guys, and not so much anymore. And so I worry about the future. Again, I will say, and it's like, you guys know it's not personal. This is where I live. I appreciate what you guys do. I appreciate what you do for the neighborhood. I like that you're a part of the neighborhood. So, that aside, I just wanted to voice some of those thoughts. So, thank you guys very much.
Chris, quick question though, is that your house that's like right on the bottom of it that says house?
No, I don't believe so. Nor do I have an encroaching fence.
You said you were one property further.
One removed, yeah, I'll point to it. Sorry, wait, if you go back, I could show you the lot. It's that guy.
Oh, that one, okay.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Yeah, I guess. Well, like I say, don't begrudge anybody for making a living or anything, so it's nothing personal. Jim Johnston, 370 County Road 550. So, like Chris says, as far as being important to us in the area, having it be families, I think there's a lot to be said for that. You tend to, if you know your neighbors, it's more comfortable, you know, you feel safer. See, my grandma grew up in this area, this neighborhood. My mom did, I did, and I'm trying to raise a family there too. So I wanted to say that, in agreement with Chris on it being important that it stays residential. And we do see you guys see it probably more than us, how Marquette is very touristy now. And you're losing that retainment where people want to stay. You know, I want to raise my family there. I've always wanted to live there and stay there. And I want my kids to want to stay there and feel safe. And wondering about the septic tank, I'm pretty sure it's probably, I'm just assuming here, it's probably just a barrel or something. And it probably isn't much of a drain field. That's just my guess. I don't think there'd be enough room there for a drain field. I just put one in, sunk a bunch of money in it, did it by the permit, and the tank and all that stuff. So it takes a good chunk of area. I don't know what you do differently. And so that's, you know, groundwater, worried about groundwater, because we have a well just on the road. And there's, I think there's another hearing after this, right? On kind of like the same subject. Okay, so I guess I'll save some stuff for that. But, yeah, thanks for listening.
Just one comment, I know you applauded them coming
Excuse
forward.
me.
Oh,
Name
sorry,
and address,
Molly
please.
Johnston, 370 County Road 550. Applauded them for coming forward, but they're already using it for short-term use, so I guess that calls into question integrity in my heart about the planning we're dealing with. If he said they're already using it for short-term use, so that's illegal, right? And he's not allowed to, but he has been. So, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but that was my understanding, is that that's what he's been operating as, but he does not have approval to operate that way. So, I don't know. Call me naive, but morals matter to me, and honesty matters to me. So, just a thought that came to me.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, last call. We'll close the public hearing at 8:10. Commissioners, Jason, any response? Anything?
Sure. We appreciate everybody's comments. I don't make these decisions. The planning commission does based on testimony, submittals. We were made aware that through a complaint that this property was being used as a short-term rental. Immediately contacted Mr. Thompson and told him that's an illegal use, you gotta shut it down. And if you wanna do that use, you gotta come and get into compliance with our ordinance. That was the tack that he took after consulting with legal our legal team, that's a reasonable approach. All we try to do is bring people into compliance. You're right, in some cases, people don't ask for permission, they ask for forgiveness. All I can do is the best I can do. All Eric can do is the best that we can do. We've tried to provide the planning commission with the best information that we can gather for them to make their decisions. So your point to integrity is valid to Mr. Ruwenga, regarding the use. A residential use is the highest and best use in this zoning district. We want people to have single-family homes in this district. That's what the intent of that district is for. The Planning Commission and the Township Board, at some point, to address, in some ways, affordable housing, wanted people, as in another example, some people acquire properties from their parents after they pass on, and they don't want to keep them. They live downstate, and they don't want the house anymore, they don't want to pay taxes on it, so they sell it off, and it goes to somebody else, maybe from downstate, or I don't know. But the Planning Commission, in an effort to address, and the board, because they approve zoning stuff, the Planning Commission makes recommendations to the board approves it. So in an effort to try to address affordable housing, because it's hard to get developers to build affordable housing, it's just not, there's no incentive to do that. It's coming, the state's addressing that with gap funding, residential TIF districts and the like, but we don't have the ability to incentivize affordable housing. So the Planning Commission allowed short-term rentals, and they allowed tiny homes. Those were two measures that we could take that would, and over the course of this winter, we're gonna be talking about density and allowing perhaps additional density in certain areas. So I hope that addresses, with regard to the use, single-family residential is permitted by right. You can build a house as long as you comply with zoning. You can build a house on a property that has adequate space for the amenities that we've talked about tonight. A short-term rental is considered residential also, but it's a different kind of use in that, yes, people are sleeping there and they're quasi-living there, but Mr. Thompson's generating profit from that. Or, in other words, he's renting it out in a different way than we allow by right. So if it's 90 days or more, you know, he could rent it every 3 months to somebody different. I don't know if that makes you guys feel any better about that, but he could do that without coming to the township at all. If you're gonna rent for 90 days or less, then you have to get a special use permit from us. And my interpretation of the ordinance was to, obviously it's a non-conforming parcel, and to try to work with that to address the non-conformity. If the planning commission considers approval of it, they may not, I don't know. If they do, then Thompson needs to go to the ZBA to get a variance. And in that case, it would not be, the zoning board of appeals is to answer your BZA. The city calls it BZA, we call it ZBA. They're synonymous with each other, but zoning board of appeals. They are a quasi-judicial body, and they're different from the planning commission and the board. They only get together when you need a dimensional variance, or there's a question with how the ordinance is written. They provide a ruling on that. The next ruling on that goes to circuit court, if you want to appeal that. So there are other steps that he would need to take. The ZBA may look at, you know, the planning commission's approval and yada yada, and they can make their own decision on it, on whether or not the variance would be granted. My assumption would be that the ZBA probably would approve it, because the problem was not self-created. This house was built in the 40s, the right-of-way has expanded over time, and it wasn't something that was self-created. That's usually the first thing that you look at when you're looking at a dimensional variance. You know, could you build it in the way that complies with the ordinance? You just don't want to. So those are my comments on the public comments. But it's up to the planning commission really to discern everything that we've talked about tonight and make a decision on.
Jason, there was another question that Mr. Waringa answered, or asked, which was, where is the drain field? So I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point, and I know that's been a cause of a denial on another one. You know, again, it's a substandard parcel, it's a substandard, and I requested that information of Mr. Thompson, wasn't able to produce that, the county wasn't able to produce that, so that is something that the planning commission needs to contemplate.
What's the square footage of the house? Do we know?
I wanna say 650 square feet, right around there, 600, 650.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So if Sodergren pumped it, at least he found a tank, I would guess, hey?
I'm sorry?
If Sodergren pumped it, he found a tank.
Yeah.
Right, so, you know, someone could assume where the drain field might be, I guess you could probably.
Yeah, I wanna say, again, I asked for this and I didn't, so the drain, I think the pump is right in this area, or sorry, not the pump, the, yeah, the tank, and so I'm assuming it's back here somewhere, but again, they didn't have that information at the health department.
I'm assuming if the septic failed for any reason, how would the county accommodate your property? Whether it's short-term, long-term, or owner-occupied, I just don't know how that would even work. Because I had to put in a mound system myself, and it takes up quite a bit of space. And it's not cheap. Not that, you know, you have 5 short-term rentals, I'm sure finance is not a part of it, but I'm just looking at the practicality of getting some kind of system in there. We do not have any utility in that area to even connect to.
0.18. So that's like less than a fifth of an acre. Okay.
And I might have misspoke there. I think the reason that we didn't approve one short-term rental request was because the well was on the adjacent property, which it was indicated that she had full rights to, which was proven wrong.
That was out by
Up on
by
Eagles.
Harlow Shores. Yep.
Well, what to do about this complicated situation? Any suggestions, motions?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Questions?
I'll make a motion. Let me just find the correct thing here. I'll make a motion that we approve a special use permit following the hearing for a parcel located, parcel ID number 5208 004-05500, with the contingencies that are noted by the planning commissioner. If I can find those. There. The approval of the proposal special land use contingent on a front yard setback variance being approved by the zoning board of appeals, and that we hear public comment on the idea.
I'll support that.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Question. So this special use goes with the land, so if the septic does go out or something and it's not, couldn't be occupied as a resident, does the special use permit then, since it's no longer, I don't know, does it dissipate? But then those, we can also pull it like after a year or something if it's not working.
You could certainly add a condition to the motion that if something detrimental was to happen to the septic system, that the use, and it wasn't able to be accommodated by the county, that the use would go away.
I'd like to
Would we
add
be
that,
using
That happened, wouldn't they?
because I don't think they have
Say
room
people
enough for the
couldn't
drain
live there.
field to do it
They
right.
could always like
Right, no one
throw
could
cash
live
in and put a brand new everything in, dig it all out, start over.
But there has to
Right,
be
but
room.
there might not be room.
Then they can replace what's there and just dig it all out. It costs a lot.
You would not be able to rebuild it in
You
the
can't,
case of a
there's
fire
not.
on that property.
It's the structure.
Yes.
But the drain field, I mean, if the drain field failed, they could literally spend enough cash and replace it where it was.
Would there be enough room, or does it go to the property line?
My guess is that the county has to provide a reasonable solution to a non-conforming property. It's like the same thing with the road commission. They have to provide you with a reasonable access. I would think that the county health department would operate in the same way. I don't know that for sure,
Yeah.
but I would assume so.
How's the drain field size figured? Is it based on the square footage of the house or the toilets or?
Typically by the square footage of the structure.
And
So-
that's all done by the county, that has nothing to do.
If the planning commission is more comfortable, you could table this until another meeting to get additional information. You have a motion and a second on the floor, so we're deliberating, but I'm just saying, like, you don't have to make a decision tonight. You can apply, deny, or approve with conditions.
What's the?
Or table.
What's the parliamentary procedure? Is a motion to table, can a motion to table follow a motion that's been made and seconded?
A roll call vote would occur on the motion that's been made and seconded. If that motion fails, then a new motion can be made.
And if you table it, it comes up.
I would suggest that you table it to a specific meeting, which would likely be our December 13th.
With public hearings, you couldn't table them, you had to postpone it or use another word?
Yeah, you could postpone it.
Yeah.
Good point. And the information you would be seeking then would be some kind of confirmation from the county, which would be Pat Chacuzzo, really, not Sonia, to inquire about this particular property and what would happen if the septic was to fail. Or the well, for that
Or
matter.
if there's adequate septic out there to run as a commercial.
So do we proceed with the motion now, or can you
Yes.
withdraw a motion, or?
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm just saying you do have options if you're, wavering on the satisfaction of the information that's been provided for you to make a decision.
So you're, in terms of procedure, you're saying that in order to reach a motion to table or to.
You have to deny the first one.
Or a motion to postpone,
This
or
motion would have to
reschedule,
fail, yes.
then the first motion that's been made and seconded would have to fail. Thank you.
So I'm thinking that, if we start putting conditions on wells and septics, or rentals or residents or whatever, I'm just a little bit not sure about that.
Yeah, it's out of our purview.
Yeah, it's way, yeah, I mean, if the septic fails at my house, I have to go to the county. And the county's gonna tell me what's gonna happen. Yeah,
So you're saying that shouldn't have any relevance in our decision?
I don't think so, I don't think that's our role.
You're responsible for general health, safety, and welfare.
Well, the
I
other.
think that,
I just think we need to be careful if we start looking at that. Do we look at it all the time on everyone that comes to us?
Yeah, well, another
It's welfare.
another way of looking at it is that if one of us did not want to approve this because we agreed with the concept that there are too many short-term rentals and not enough single-family. So we were concerned about this being a single-family that would have to be conveyed by the owner. And could it then be conveyed if the septic was inadequate? And you're saying that you think that the county would have to accommodate it because it was a non-conforming use, then the discussion of septic and what would happen is relevant to whether or not somebody would approve this for a different reason or disapprove it for a different reason. So, just so you know, because I think I'm going to vote, well, I don't know if it's appropriate to say what I'm gonna vote, but anyway. It's not just, it's not just deciding about whether a septic is adequate or inadequate. It's deciding about if we vote, if some of us would vote to not approve this so that it would have to be conveyed, could it then be conveyed as a single family and occupied as a single family? That would be the issue to me. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not.
To me,
Yeah.
I don't know about the single family thing, because if I bought that property, moved in, and the septic failed as a single family, I have to get out, I think. I don't get to stay there. I mean, I think you have to fix it. And I think Jason said the county has to give you a reasonable.
Right.
I'm assuming, but I'm
Yeah,
not.
that's all that I was
I do
interested
not
in
know
for
the
that.
answer.
I wasn't interested in trying to regulate whether he should get a new septic or not.
Yeah, I think they're all interesting concepts, and I can't imagine where that septic really is.
Yeah.
If we're all done discussing, we can call the question and do a roll call vote. Everybody okay with
So,
that?
for clarification, the motion was to approve with conditions.
With the conditions you had listed. That's that's my motion I made.
I believe Bethany had another condition too.
Right.
All right, roll call vote. Steve Hakinen?
Yes.
Lenny Ferraro?
No.
Bethany Cody?
No.
Linda Winslow?
Yes.
Jim Johnson? Yes. Motion passes. Okay, on to the ZBA. EZA. CBA. And that will be at the, just whenever you make it. Set it up, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I just have one comment about short-term rentals. So the state has been looking at controlling the short-term rentals across the state of Michigan. So the legislature would be deciding who and where and how the whole deal works, taking it out of the hands of the planning commission. I don't think it's gonna make it through this round personally, but who knows? We also, today, don't have a number of short-term rentals that are able to be in an area. So we don't have a limit today, is what I will say. There's been some discussion about reviewing that because there's been concern voiced out in the community, just like here tonight, about the number of short-term rentals taking up housing for single families. So your comments are well taken, again. But if the state takes over, there probably won't be any limits, or how that will work, who knows. The city of Marquette does have limits. You have to get on this magic list, I'll call it. I love magic lists, okay? Because you're not quite sure how you're moving on that magic list. Would we go in that direction? I don't know, but I just want you to be reassured that there have been discussions about relooking at numbers. Because, yeah, we all want families, even the people with short-term rentals want families. So, thank you for your comments.
Although with a 600 square foot house, it's not gonna be that big of a family.
What? How many people lived in your house? You told me.
Husband and a wife and a baby.
More than that, Jim, right?
Well, there's no doubt the houses used to be smaller. And I think they're gonna trend back that way, actually. People don't want McMansions and the like. You know, that's what we're seeing anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, cost of construction at $300 a square foot is tough pill to swallow.
6C, special use permit, public hearing 1108-23-2. Proposed short-term rental land use to be located on property located within rural residential zoning district. This property address is 400 A and B, County Road 550 in Marquette. Parcel tax ID is 5208 004 02910. The applicant is Philville LLC, 117 North 6th Street in Marquette. Jason?
Okay, you guys are probably familiar with this property because earlier in the year,
Excuse me.
we approved 2 tiny homes. By special use, those were kind of a dimensional special use. So this is actually a request to utilize those 2 tiny homes as short-term rentals. And we'll go through the semantics here, but basically just across the street in Phil's 550 area, the star represents the general location of those structures within proximity to the neighbors and the store itself. This is the parcel. It's located just to the east of the store parcel, and it is zoned rural residential as well. A copy of the survey there, you can see the bottom portion of that survey indicates the parcel that was acquired. These are pictures of the structures. This one's looking southeast towards the store. This one's the view from 550 towards the cabins. And view from the cabin entry drive looking east towards the neighbors. And then looking west towards the west. And then this is a site plan that was submitted conceptually, I guess, as it were, by the applicant, showing how they are located on the property. And then this is a more detailed schematic of how they're situated, along with the approved drain field and well location. Same scenario, and you see Mr. Lepinen, who's representing Philville LLC, is here, and I would request that Mr. Lepinen maybe explain why, after these were constructed and proposed to be used long-term, why you've applied to have them used as a short-term rental for the Planning Commission's edification.
No?
Come on up.
Okay.
Just to provide some context and background.
Okay. Aaron Lepinen, 117 North 6th Street. To Jason's point, when we first applied for the short-term tiny home rentals, we had the intent of not, I guess this is where semantics come in, long-term is 90 days, which we were applying for 90-day rentals. For me, that's still relatively short-term. During the process, I would say we saw interest rates almost double since we started. We saw a little bit of the demand for the 90-day temporary nurses actually decrease when they agreed on a nursing strike. And we also had a number of requests for people in the community directly around us, Middle Island Point, asking if they could have house some of their family members when they were visiting over the summer or in the fall, northern students. And so I would mention the most important thing is we were looking for flexibility so that we can do any stay. We've had people coming asking us for 1 month stays. We've had people coming and staying for 90 days. We've had people coming and asking us for 90 days, which I will be honest and transparent, we have done that because we own the adjacent Phil's 550 property, Kevin and I, and we do have a short-term rental. So I guess there was some miscommunication, and that's why I'm here, is because I talked to Jason about potentially joining the lots and getting that, but he suggested this would be the best way moving forward, is to apply specifically for that property. I would say, we've done, as you can see from some of the pictures, tried to do a really great job of really, shielding it in the woods away from any people. We've let all the neighbors feel free to use that road. So we put signs specifically for people, making sure there's no trespassing outside. We put the map inside the cabins, making sure nobody, so we're trying to be conscious, really. Also, one of the managers is also the full-time cleaner, so we've been giving her some extra income, and she actually stays there occasionally. So we've been trying to use them in a more flexible way than just the 90-day rentals, which we were originally intending to do when we applied about, 18 months ago, I think it was.
Do you have any leases on them currently?
No, we do not have, they're short-term currently. Well, we've had up to a month at a time has been the longest currently that we've had since they opened at the end of the summer. So we're really in that, first 8 to 12 weeks of being completed. But construction costs were also a lot higher, as we talked about. Septic tanks, drilling for wells, that all was more expensive than our budget, and short-term does do better than 90-day contracts. So that's really looking for a little bit more flexibility for how we use the property.
So have you had any leases with either one of them at all since you built them?
Like a 30-day lease.
Just 30?
Yeah, it's been the max.
Over like a long term?
No, we haven't even really, they've just been open over 30 days, so, but we have asked around, honestly, to look for those. But the high demand for the short term, especially being in the woods, has been pretty exceptional. So I think that's really what we're looking for, is the flexibility to continue that. And
Who built these for you?
Proper Construction, Andrew Richards is his name. He's also a County Road 550 resident.
Proper?
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah.
And there was a comment made at the last planning commission meeting when we scheduled this public hearing, that the price for building these was $150,000 apiece.
Yes.
Okay.
It exceeded that slightly, but
Oh.
Was that anticipated?
the exceeding it, no. That was just due to really the septic and well costs came in higher. We did overstar. So, everything you have, heating costs were more expensive. Took longer to finish because it took a year to get those heating units in. So you can't do any, you can't rent it without heating in this climate. So
What's the interior of these like? I'm asking these questions because these are, this tiny home concept is new to us. And
Okay.
so what do you have? Do you have one enclosed bedroom and then a loft, or how does it?
So there's one enclosed bedroom, one full bathroom with a shower, and then there's one space that is kind of living, dining, kitchen. So literally it's an 8-foot long kitchen wall with a tiny sink, a tiny oven, or sorry, it doesn't even have an oven, it just has a microwave. And it just has an electric, everything we did all electric, so there's no gas for sustainable reasons, and not to bring gas through there, so.
So when you would anticipate a short-term rental, I mean, so you would be thinking of how many people could even fit in there?
So 2 people and a child have stayed there.
So 3 is basically
yeah,
what it's limited to.
I think
Okay.
we've advertised it at 4, but, I mean, most of it, we had honestly, a couple people families from Middle Island Point that brought their kids, they stayed for 3 weeks in there one time, so they had a newborn, and the parents took the bedroom, and the kids took the, living room, I guess we call it.
Of course, if it was a larger party, they could rent both of them, right?
They could, we've discouraged it, noise is, we do also, own most of the property around it, so we are able to control with the exception of the southern property. But we own the northern property as well, which is a separate 3-acre site on there, so, and, we've really been trying to make sure that.
And I forget, I know that we were told this, but do these 2 units share the same well and septic?
So they have separate septic tanks, same drain field,
Okay,
share a well, all
Share a
on,
well.
on site.
okay. And I don't know whether this is, you would answer this question or not, but if this property, could you sell these as individual units? Or would you have to sell both of them?
That I have not explored at this point,
Well-
and I know that would be a question for Jason. I don't know if there's any kind of.
Could these be sold individually?
No.
Okay. So that if they ever were sold, they'd have to be sold as 2 tiny homes.
The way I understand it, yes, because they would have to be saleable on their own, and they're not. There's not 2 acres there. Or perhaps there could be 2 acres. I guess that's to be determined, but certainly from a setback standpoint on the sides, they could be. The question remains whether or not you could get an acre on each one, because that's the minimum lot size for the zoning district.
So the only way that they could be sold individually as individual homes would be if there would be some kind of a boundary adjustment to your adjoining property?
I have not gone.
It would be a land division.
A land
That
division.
would have to meet the minimum requirements of the ordinance for
Okay.
the district, which would be 1 acre. And then
Okay.
have access by easement.
And then I have just a final question. I had mentioned during your partner's earlier session about this issue of eagles. I don't even know if it's true or not, but are you aware of fly ash monitoring wells in this area?
No, but I do know for the well approval with the county, we had to have the water tested significantly, and I did talk to anybody else that had been in the area. I know the Enrights did a lot of work for Phil back in the day, and he didn't know any, I mean, that's new to me, but nothing came up in terms of that. And the water came back, actually, they said it was clean, I guess, so I'm taking their word
Okay.
for it. The county approved the water
All right.
on that one.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you.
Why don't we open up the public hearing right now? And we can discuss it further, so we'll open the public hearing at 8:44. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward, state your
Yeah,
name and
thank you.
address.
Jim Johnston, 370 County Road 550. I can just repeat what I said about all the family living around there, very important to us. And also, yeah, it was originally brought forth as a long-term, 90 days, get some, stability there kind of thing. As, there's many people that didn't come to the meeting, unfortunately, felt very strongly even about that. But now, and obviously, it's been occupied. I mean, you can rent it for 2 days. That's the minimum rental right now, according to the website. And it seems like it's been that way since the get-go, judging by the comments left on the site from, if you just take each comment as a separate rent, or 5 in 1 month, 3 in another, or whatever. Just kind of worried about the short-term rental special application type of thing. Maybe we'll do a little bit trial by here, a little bit there. It seems like it's happening pretty rapidly. 3 different places almost in one evening meeting. So that's, you know, a concern. I mean, there's been rumors of more buildings being put up, and just, I don't know, just kind of feel a little bit burned from the long-term discussion earlier on. You know, I don't know, it just sometimes feels like people's minds are already made up, but, you know, there has been, my cousin lives next door, and he has some issues with his well now. He claims they're from the blasting that they had to do for their well. I mean, stuff like that affects people who've been living in the area for a long time. What else? Yeah, just, the short-term stuff, it's just creeping into the area, and I just think it's very important to have stability with families, and so thanks for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello again. I want to, I guess first just say, like, thank you guys all for hearing us out. I wish that we didn't have to bore the commission with this issue. I recognize, like, I kind of geek for zoning and planning. I recognize that there's nothing in the special use that really prohibits this. I've said before, like, I do think that you guys do a great job of managing those things. I'll echo my statements earlier, but that's obviously for a different planning commission meeting, and for you all to maybe mull over in the future about the future of Marquette Township. And we're seeing it in our neighborhood, and we're coming here because we want to voice our concerns. In a lot of ways, we're the only people here that this is, like, in a lot of ways, is a neighborhood meeting. And I wish that, yeah, we could, and we will have some of these conversations. So I guess I appreciate you all kind of hearing us out and these issues. I guess the one thing that I will say, just to echo again, is that we are concerned about our neighborhood, and I don't think that necessarily needs to exclude short-term rentals. I recognize that that's becoming part of what makes Marquette special. I've certainly gone to other communities and I've experienced short-term rentals, and I think they're marvelous. There's a bit of concern about the concentration that we have in our neighborhood. I've lived here for 10 years. I used to rent my property. I rented it from Phil Pierce. And he was a huge fixture in my life. And I know that the placemaking that is spoken about in the vision, the roadmap of the county, the township. I don't think that that's mutually exclusive. I think that we can have a mix of these things, and I guess just as, like, more not so much for you guys, but for you guys and you guys, like, I hope that these processes and going through it can galvanize us as a neighborhood, because I think that's what we really want. We want to be a neighborhood. We want to be heard. We want to know that we all have the same interests in mind, and that we care about the land and the homes and the life that we have out here. I know it's hard enough. A mining truck going by every minute or so, shaking your house. That's just a little one, quite a bit. I'll yield my time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Molly Johnston, 370, County Road 550. Speaking to the fly ash comments that you were asking about, not that I've experienced with it being affecting the well, but I do live on the, what would be the far side of the road from where the fly ash stuff is being done, and I do feel my entire house shake
What are you talking about, the gravel pit?
Yeah, isn't that what they're talking about, the blasting they're doing?
New gravel pit off the old Flash dump road?
No, well, I can't.
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
when you're talking about it affecting wells, that's what made me think of, was that it is vibrating greatly. But I would just echo that, the concentration is a concern. I would ask the question, why the delay in capping short-term rentals? Many other places have caps, like the city. Just wondering, obviously, this isn't new. This has been going on for a while. That's why other places have caps. So I'm wondering why there's been such a delay in capping it. And then if you look at our neighborhood, can you tell us how many short-term rentals there actually are now in our neighborhood? Because like Chris said, it does feel like a lot. I'm wondering how many you've already allowed in our neighborhood. Because right now, we're looking at 3 in a very small area. And that transforms the culture of our neighborhood, the culture and the safety. You run it very well and safe, but you don't control who's coming in and out constantly. So it is a safety issue. We have 5 children. And so, like, they were saying the stability isn't there. The more concentrated short-term rentals get as much as a gift as they are to the economy, to individual wealth. So, yeah, I guess I'd like answers on some of those figures, and you speak to it being on the agenda, or not agenda, but a horizon to be addressing caps. But just wondering, is that all just hypothetical talk at this point, or is that actually something that's going to come to fruition? And we probably don't have concrete answers about that, but as a community member, that's what we're looking for, is kind of like, okay, where are we at on this, and is anything going to happen with that? Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Last call. We'll close the public hearing at 8:53. Any comments, questions?
Yeah, Jason, were you cognizant of the fact that this was being used as a short-term rental from the get-go?
I wasn't. We received a complaint, ironically, from somebody in Middle Island Point,
Mm-hmm.
which Mr. Leppinen actually spoke to,
Yeah.
which, I guess, confuses me, but followed up with the complaint, searched the website, saw that it was on there,
Mm-hmm.
contacted Ms. Leppinen,
Mhm.
said this isn't what we signed up for,
Yeah.
you're in violation of the ordinance,
Yeah.
you need to submit a permit if you would like to do this land use.
What was his response to that? Did he claim ignorance, or didn't
No,
know that?
It came in the next day and
Yeah.
submitted.
Is there any reason why, could I speak to you, sir?
Oh, of course.
Did you realize that you were in violation of what you were doing here?
No, actually.
You didn't know that you hadn't been approved for a short-term rental?
Well, because we own the 3 parcels, so we had investigated joining the lots, and we were in process of looking at joining those lots.
Yeah,
So-
did you talk to Mr. McCarthy about that?
Yes, I did.
And so you were cognizant that that's what they were trying to do?
Correct.
Okay. So-
Didn't know it was live,
Oh.
but suggested if they want to do that, then
Yeah.
they need to come before the planning commission
Yeah.
and get approval to do that.
Yeah,
The other option that we explored was them combining the parcels, but in my opinion, that doesn't work because Phil's is a non-conforming use, okay, essentially. It's a store that's been there, grandfathered, and doesn't, it wouldn't jive, and I probably would hear it from the residents anyway. So the way, in my opinion, and to keep my job, and keep myself in check, was to have him come in and apply if that's what they wanna do. Otherwise, I said, shut it down within 30 days.
okay,
We applied immediately.
all right.
When you, when you did rent it on a long-term basis, what was your monthly charge for rent?
We're right about, what was it 1,500 a month, I think?
I think it was more, actually.
Was it? Okay, it might have been more. I'd have to look into it.
No, that's okay, that's all right. Yep, thank you.
But,
Which is an astronomical number.
Yeah.
For what the structure is. But I suppose, and we're not in the business of telling you, you know, we're not in the business of economics. We're in the business of land use, general health, safety, and welfare. That's what we are, I should say we, but the planning commission's in charge of. So,
you know, to that point, part of that is, and I think being a community member is, you know, the two of us have owned this store now for 5 years, and honestly, we haven't taken a single dollar from it. We put everything back into it, including anything that we plan on making this, goes back into painting it, goes back into paying salaries when nobody's going to the store. I mean, we've committed to being there, and, you know, I think we are gonna continue to commit to being there, but, you know, selling beer in the middle of January doesn't pay an 8% interest rate, you know?
These things keep the lights on.
So, you know, that's our biggest part of it is, you know, I can be 100% honest and look, all of you, we're not getting rich off of this by any means, and this goes to pay for keeping some of that stuff, you know, upkept, sorry, so.
Can I speak to that really quick too? I mean, just, we hear you guys, you know, as far as being a community member, at the end of the day, store, at the end of the year, we pray it breaks even. That's about it right now. So what we've learned after 5 years of operating this, our little cabin has been profitable. What's the one thing that keeps the lights on? It's doing these cabins. So, you know, these aren't meant to be transient. I mean, we had 2 trailers there before that are gone now, that Phil had rented out.
Shovel the roof.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot more people back there.
I mean, we have done, I think, a tasteful job on this. We are out there constantly. This is our passion to keep this thing open, and this is what keeps the lights on, is these little rentals.
Yeah.
We're not doing any more. This is what we had, what we felt we had to do.
And we replaced trees after,
Yeah,
during
we've
construction,
done-
we planted trees.
we have.
So, you know, I know you guys are out there, I've seen you guys using the, and I'm happy that you guys get to use that space, and we're gonna continue to do that, but we wanna make sure that, and we do control the people coming in, honestly. We have, you know, they've been either uncles of the employees, they've been, you know, closer family members, but we do go through the Airbnb service because there is an insurance component if anything happens. And that's why it's been listed, so.
Sorry, I probably out of order, but I don't think, I'm like, appreciate that, but I don't think that it, like, we were talking about the store is a non-conforming, it's not rural residential, it's zoned differently. So we cannot talk about the short-term rentals in the same light that we talk about the store. I appreciate that it's difficult to operate that store, but I don't think that for the commission's sake that we can necessarily consider the rentals as something, and as being something that's keeping the lights on in the store, because it's its own entity, it's zoned differently, and that's just, sorry.
it's not zoned differently. It's zoned rural
It's-
residential.
Wait,
And the
it's
store-
a spot zone, but it's,
It's not a spot zone.
it's
It's a
non-conforming.
grandfathered use. It's been there for a long time.
Sure, but you couldn't do, like, you can't add on to the store, correct?
Not without approval from the ZBA.
Okay, so it's a ZBI thing. All right, I must not understand that.
I guess this is you can step down here. I want to speak to the residents that are here. This is an exciting opportunity for us because our master plan's coming up to be revised. And this area is a particular concern of ours. And I think to answer your question, ma'am, about, you know, when would this be addressed, I think it's gonna happen sooner than you think it is. The reason that we haven't put any kind of, I guess, cap, or haven't even discussed a cap, is because if, up until tonight, we have 23 in the township. We have 56 square miles. Most of our short-term rentals are in Trowbridge Park, with much higher density, mind you. We personally haven't had any issues. Your issue tonight about calling the state police, that's the first issue Eric and I have heard since we approved short-term rentals. They really kind of police themselves because of that two-way review process, me renting from you and you being the host. But I will say that a concentration of them in a certain area does pique the interest of Eric and I and the Planning Commission, and it's something that we probably will start to discuss. Furthermore, I hope that when we have some open house discussions about the future of this particular area, that you come and voice your opinions and engage in the same way that you have tonight, so that we can hear those concerns when it comes to, because there's a lot of discussion in the planning world in which we orbit in about assuming or assimilating other types of land uses into residential to make it more of a community type of scenario. So Philville is a neighborhood, there's no doubt about that. But the reason that it's a neighborhood is because, in part, the store, there's other commercial land uses out there, as you're aware of, with the boat works and perhaps some, say again? Antlers, yes, which has been in existence for some time. So it's an interesting area, and it has a lot of history. It's something that I personally, being from the area somewhat too, is very interested in, and would be interested in hearing your comments as far as how to move forward in that particular area when it comes time. So again, as Commissioner Winslow stated, your comments are well received, and it's up to the Planning Commission to make the decisions, but I think that your comments were not just, I don't like this in my backyard, and they don't mean anything, they don't hold any credence. I think your comments hold a lot of credence, especially in this. We do have a list. We do have a list of these, and we'd be happy to share it with you. Maybe if you redact the. Yeah, there's 23. We've denied 4. And the 4 that were denied for various reasons, but if you have the sheriff's department showing up to your house on a regular basis, you're not going to get a short-term rental from us. And in the same way, if you are underperforming and we do get complaints about a particular property, that special use permit can go away just as quickly as it was issued.
So there's
Our office is open 8 to 4:30, and you're welcome to stop in anytime.
So there is another short-term rental up across from the quarry we approved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we provided you with a map of
Yeah.
existing and proposed in that particular area. The Philville area, though, is clearly one that has been desired for these, and it should be an area that, as well as Trowbridge Park, that we look at in the near future. Regardless of the outcome of tonight's public hearing.
Are you renting out the store, long-term rental? Is that short-term rental also?
That's an approved short-term rental.
Okay, that's what I thought. Just wanted to be sure. That would be the 386 County Road 550, right? Under Kevin's name? Okay. What do you think? Guess we'll need a motion one way or the other.
I'll make a motion that we approve the special use permit for a short-term rental located on County Road 400 A and B, excuse me, County Road 550, 400 A and B, parcel ID number 5208-004-02910.
I'll second it.
All right. Moved and seconded, and we're looking for any further discussion.
I think the location and the parcel of this one is much better suited for the short-term rentals, being behind the store and having the acreage that they do and the property around it.
I think what we found out in both of these applications for short-term rentals is that if you don't get a complaint, they can go on for a long time running them as short-term rentals without getting a permit. So I think we're gonna have to figure out a way to keep that under control. Because if somebody from Middle Island Point hadn't said something, or somebody else hadn't said something concerning this, they would have been going on with these short-term rentals for who knows how long.
Yeah, it's,
So I think that's an issue that we're gonna have to look at.
yeah, it's a point well taken, and unfortunately, Eric and I don't have the time to be sitting on Airbnb all day checking out.
No, and I understand that, so I think that, we've got a bit of a problem here. Because, like I said, if someone hadn't come forward, there wouldn't be a short-term rental application coming out of either one of these gentlemen. And I don't blame them for that either, because if they figure they can, nobody cares. So I think we're gonna have to figure out a way to be more cognizant of that fact. If we're gonna go through this kind of effort to provide short-term rentals and make them go through the special use permit, we gotta make sure that, people that are doing it the right way, versus people that are just sloughing it off, we have to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Of course, how would you know?
That's right, so I mean, that's,
There's actually a company you can hire.
well, and if the state legislature passes, this kind of stuff, then it's a moot point. But until then, we're gonna have to figure out a way to get this under control. Because there's probably more short-term rentals out in this township that we're not even cognizant of. And I think that this demonstrated that tonight.
Well, if you go online, you can see the addresses that are available, correct?
Yeah, be a full-time job.
To a point, there's, this isn't an isolated issue, guys. This is happening in all the areas that are desirable for recreation, to include some of our surrounding townships. There's a company, and Eric's got a webinar with them later this week.
Not even a webinar, meeting with some of their representatives about the services that they can provide as far as monitoring.
So some people won't advertise, they'll do it between midnight and 6 a.m. There's all kinds of tricks that we'll come up with, and like I said, people are being very innovative with their properties these days. Housing costs and the like are really affecting the way that, how innovative people are, and we can only do the best we can. It's never gonna be perfect.
No, I understand
But I
that.
think, it's honorable that, they realize that they're in the wrong, and we're trying to make it right. And they're here before us tonight with, solid comments by residents that are adjacent to it. And I think we have our work to do when it comes to the master plan and addressing these concerns.
But on this issue of, that Steve mentions, if some people in the community would be doing short-term rentals without our knowledge, if there's no complaints, and if it's not a revenue issue for us to capture the fee for a special use permit, then why would we wanna even hire somebody to monitor this? If there's no complaints and it's not a revenue issue, we're not losing a lot of revenue because of special use permit fees, then
Well,
who cares?
That's debatable, because if you rent your primary structure out more than 14 days a year, you lose your primary residence exemption. So that's tax loss to the township.
Okay, okay, there's a point,
So
okay,
there are, you know,
And then else it's the Wild West.
okay.
yeah.
Alright.
So we do our best to stay on top of stuff. We're a complaint-driven department when it comes to property maintenance or zoning violations. You know, we're a two-person staff with 54 square miles to patrol. So, you know, we're busy in many ways, but we do and are responsive to complaints when they arise, and we're out there. We have pretty much a 24-hour rule. If you get a call or a complaint, we respond within 24 hours and try to adjust the situation. Even if you were to bring this to the township attorney, right, he's gonna tell you, try to get him in compliance. It doesn't benefit anybody to litigate or anything like that. So if we can get them into compliance, get them into the point where they're at least approved through local zoning, they can sell the property. You know, that's really what I try to do for residents, is to make sure they're in compliance with the ordinance, so that when they sell the property, there's no impediments to it, there's no nonconformities to it. Well, unless it's too small of a property, but that's not gonna change because it's a lot of record. So,
Yeah, I wasn't talking about punishing anybody, I was talking about this company that Eric's gonna talk to, who monitors so that they can tell us who's doing what, whatever.
well, they do it off-site. I mean, the company that I'm familiar with, they do it off-site. They just continuously it's like an algorithm built in, okay? So they just take a political boundary, basically, and they just continuously monitor, and then just spit out. I mean, they'll even send letters for you of violations if you give them the letterhead. So
they monitor like
the service is like
Airbnb and-
$5,000 a year. Is that worth it to us? I mean, I don't know. You know, that's up to the township board to
Okay.
debate. I will say that we don't have the problems that the city does. And if you were to look at, other than this particular area, if you were to look at proximity of ours, like the city has a proximity rule that you can't be two on the same block, I think it is. You know, if a standard city block is 600 feet, this is really one of the only areas where you have a small concentration of them. And it's only 3, and I would imagine that before the end of winter, that we're gonna have something in place that addresses that proximity. Or a cap on how many, but I mean, the city, what do they have, 250, something like that? You know, Traverse City has 680, Grand Rapids, I mean, obviously bigger communities, but my point is that we don't have nearly the volume that even the city of Marquette does, and they have a waiting list, so it's not like it's going away there. But I have read recently, as long as we're having the discussion, that short-term rentals are taking a hit because of inflation and people getting into mortgages that were not fixed mortgages, and now the interest rates are rising, and they're having to sell off these types of properties. So it will continue to fluctuate. And I honestly, you know me, the people that are pushing for the short-term rentals to be controlled by the state and not local regulators like ourselves are corporations, because it's a real estate sector and they want to be able to control properties. And in my view, you know, there used to be lobbyists, now they're lawmakers, and now they're regulating themselves, which is why you're seeing this type of legislature coming forward. And you saw it with the governor's big energy initiative. All of a sudden, we don't have control over wind and solar anymore. So, well, large scale. So you're seeing that happen in real time with other issues that are really important to people in this particular part of the country. I'll get off my soapbox.
I agree, Jace. I think a year from now, we won't even be doing these. I think it's gonna.
Well, it'll be unfortunate if that's the case. Hopefully, we can still have a licensing and some kind of safety measures in place for fire inspections and some kind of, like I said, licensing program. Some kind of check and balance. Because the other thing that's happening is corporations are buying up single-family homes. And if you want to talk about housing affordability, I was just on 60 Minutes last Sunday. There was a company that owns 90,000 single-family homes in Sun Belt, and they're making money hand over fist because they're jacking the rents. And even if they're renting long-term, they're making, I mean, BlackRock, Vanguard, they're hedging retirements and pensions on displacing people. For instance, in Amsterdam, there's entire buildings that are being bought that they displace all the people inside. They're not even renting them back out. They're hedging the value of the property without the overhead. It's asinine. And that's the power that corporations have, unfortunately. Because their lawyers will always be better than ours. Next on the fleecing of America.
You gonna vote there, Jimmy?
Well, why don't we vote on this and we can, move on. So let's do.
You got a motion and a second on the floor.
Right. Let's do a roll call vote for Steve Akinen.
Yes.
Anthony Ferraro.
Yes.
Bethany Cody.
Yes.
And Johnson's yes. Okay.
We'll follow up with you gentlemen soon.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you to the residents who.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shoot me an email, leave your contact when it comes to updating the master plan and having some like community meetings.
Great.
We really appreciate that.
Thank you for listening in.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jason.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate your comment.
No unfinished business, no correspondence. Linda Winslow, you're up.
Just don't cough, right? Sorry about that. Anyways, the Marquette Township Board met on Wednesday, November 1st, and it was a short meeting with a very small agenda. We had a library report, and Lynn Duran, the supervisor, talked about a retreat she went to. And we will have Community Day next year on August 3rd. So that was budgeted in the budget that I hope passes in December. That was it.
Christmas tree.
That has nothing to do with us. The Christmas tree and the car show are not done by the township any longer. They are done by a group that, I'm not sure what their name is, but they are fundraising out there, and they will be doing it in the
Tree's
future.
already out.
They purchased a tree, however that works.
Yeah.
Yep, so good for them, because I think you'll see community attending. I know the car show was popular last year, so I did registration, so. Yeah, so the township will no longer be paying for those activities. They did
Is it a
support.
group of township residents that's doing this?
Jason, do you know who they are?
I don't. I
We
think
don't.
a couple of them are from the radio station and, yeah, the mall.
Yeah,
Okay. More of a business type thing then.
correct. That's what I think. We'll see.
Just write down 3 hours.
Want to go outside?
That's 6 hours.
Okay, that's it on that. Rec committee report, if there is one.
Jason.
The rec committee meets, well, they probably won't meet, there's not much going on. We will maybe have a meeting next week, but probably not. And then we're gonna be looking for 2 new recreation committee members, because 2 of them, I believe, are stepping down, so. It's kind of that time of the year where there's just not a whole lot going on. We're wrapping up projects, the grant has been submitted, so all the front-end work has been done. They got their CIP request into the board for budgetary reasons for the tennis court, so, yeah, it's slowing down and allows us to get into things like the master plan update, recreation plan update, transportation plan update, which we'll start discussing soon, and any zoning amendments that we would like to make based on the year's events.
Road committee.
We met yesterday, and we talked about exactly that. The transportation plan, which is a appendice of the master plan, so we talked about kind of the process of getting that updated over the next year, so.
Planning and zoning report.
No further comments tonight.
And any announcements?
So we won't be having another meeting in November. The next meeting will be December. Next meeting?
Our meeting,
December.
December 13th, says
Yeah.
right on the agenda.
Okay, just a reminder to
Yeah, and then
people.
we'll also propose next year's meeting schedule. Usually Clerk Rattari has that sorted out by then. But as long as you guys are good with the second Wednesday of each month at 7 o'clock, then we're, nothing will change.
Any public comment?
Who are you?
Good. I go to Northern.
Are you a student?
Yeah, taking state and local government, and we have to.
That a girl?
Pretty thrilling, huh?
What'd you learn tonight?
Quite a lot. I did not expect to see those two here in the.
Some controversy?
Yeah, did not expect that at all.
Yeah.
Our meetings usually aren't this long.
Yeah, I didn't expect it actually, but I mean, it was an interesting one. Good one to come to.
Well, if you need a card or anything to prove that you were here.
Yeah, I need a signature.
Maybe
it
a
has
picture.
To be from
Not
an
my first rodeo.
So those.
Yeah, come on up.
You guys.
That guy, he'll sign it. This guy over here.
What's your
Here,
major?
Jim Johnson is the chairperson. He'll sign up for you.
Poli-sci actually.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Jim doesn't sign anything for less than $5.
$5?
Yep.
I don't have any cash on me.
Well, I'm not really a public official.
That's
Yes,
called
you are.
embezzlement.
Dude,
You are a public official.
That's
You should
called,
have Jason sign it.
Jason sign it.
Public official.
He's not a public
It has to be
official.
elected.
You're appointed,
It has to be elected.
Okay.
Appointed.
you're an appointed official.
He's yep,
Oh,
he's
all right.
appointed.
Public official.
Their employees,
no, heck no.
not them.
Paid enough.
Yeah.
You can finish.
I've been doing that.